A while back I made, oh, it's dark here. There we go. A while back I made a video about having ADHD, and in typical ADHD fashion, it took me like 2.5 weeks to tell my mom's a nurse, by the way, to tell my mom what medicine I wanted to try out. So yesterday, she called in the medication, and I got it, and I took the first dose this morning. So what was I saying? Right, and it's dark again. So there's 2 different ways, I guess you could say, that you can treat ADHD, and that's with a stimulant and with non-stimulant. So a stimulant would be like Adderall, and back into the darkness we go. And that's kind of the one that people are most familiar with, but you can also treat it with, why did I grab my purse? You can also treat it with non-stimulants. And that's what I decided to try and do, because it's not a controlled substance, meaning that I don't have to go into the doctor's office all the time to be like, hi, I do still have ADHD, and I'm not abusing my meds. And also, it was a little bit cheaper. GoodRx should sponsor this video. Anyway, the purpose of this is that I wanted to do a little video log to kind of keep track of my symptoms, because non-stimulants don't work right away like stimulants do. So it'll take a little while before I can start feeling like the meds are doing me any good. The doctor said it could take potentially up to a month. I'm gonna guess it's gonna take at least 2 weeks. In the meantime, I just wanted to kind of show what each day was like for me. I figured that would probably give a good baseline for if and when, I'm gonna have to put you down for a moment. Ooh, that's an awful angle. For if and when the meds start working, and also, you know, take content where you can get it. So I just took the first dose, so obviously it's not gonna have any effects on me, not really today. So I'll check back in this afternoon and tell you about the kind of day that I had. So I'm going to record this while driving, which may not be the safest thing, but oh well. If the camera quality is real bad, I'm sorry. This is the end of the first day after starting my meds. I don't think I mentioned it this morning, but what I'm taking is generic Wellbutrin, which is something like bupropion or I should know what it is, but I don't. First day, I can't say I felt anything. My mom mentioned, you know, paying attention to see if I have any weird thoughts and feelings, and just, you know, paying attention to myself to see if I felt any different. I didn't. Today was basically the same as any other day, with zoning out sometimes, which fortunately for me, I guess, is the fact that usually when I do kind of start zoning out, I can usually catch the fact that I'm doing it pretty soon after I start, so it's only for a few seconds. The problem is I do it frequently, so it's not like I notice once, hey, I'm zoning out, and then I can just not do it. It's just kind of this continual cycle. My limit for how long I can kind of focus on something before the zoning out just happens constantly stayed the same. It's about 2 hours. So the main reason why I wanted to try medicine was mostly because of kind of focus and attention issues. I have issues sometimes zoning out during lectures, and then the other school-related problem that I really noticed this past year was that sometimes it was just really hard to get myself to focus on like studying and doing homework and reviewing, you know, doing lessons and that sort of thing, which obviously isn't good because, you know, I kind of need to focus and learn the material in order to not fail. Both of those things, while they have been issues in the past, have never been serious problems. So, I mean, so far I've been able to manage well enough. My biggest concern is driving. If you're familiar with that John Mulaney bit, and if I can find it, I'll insert it here.
Have you ever just been sitting there thinking about something for like 20, 25 minutes, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm driving, and you remember? You're like, I'm going 75 miles an hour. I have been for a while. I could have changed so many lives. Sometimes my wife, I have this wife, she'll be like, are you watching the road? And I'm always like, I am looking through the windshield. And I'm not gonna hit anyone. But no.
That's a perfect summation of what it's like when I drive. I am staring at the windshield. I have just enough brain power focused that, like, if something moves in a way that it shouldn't move, I'll bring my attention back to driving. But the majority of the time while I am driving, my brain is not focusing on the road, which is a little dangerous. And even though it's something that I'm aware of, it's not something I can really stop. I mean, like, okay, I've, noticed in the past, I'm not really paying attention to the road. I'm not really paying attention to driving. And it's like, and so I get into the mindset of, trying to pay attention while I'm driving. And then my mind starts going, it'd be really bad if I wasn't paying attention and something happened. I might get into a car crash. And so then I'll start imagining what it would be like to get into a car crash. And then I'll start imagining what it would be like to have to recover from that said car crash. And then it's 2 minutes later and I've realized that I haven't been paying attention to the road the whole time. That's, for anyone who's neurotypical, that's what having ADHD is like. I would like to be able to drive and focus on the road, or at least be able to choose to focus on the road. I can't necessarily guarantee that I'll always choose to focus on the road, because sometimes what's in my brain is more exciting than the monotony of driving. But I'd like to at least have the option. Currently I'm not in school. It is July 8th. Not July. It is June. It is not July. It's June. It's June 8th, I think. No, it's the 7th. No, it's the 8th. And I've got 2.5, roughly, months before I start going back to school. So that should be plenty of time for the medicine to work if it's going to, and if it doesn't, for me to try increasing the dosage in the hopes that maybe that'll work. So fingers crossed, maybe it'll actually help by the time school starts back. Day 2 of taking medicine. Today I didn't have work, so it's a little bit harder to try and gauge how bad symptoms are, because I don't have to, sustain my focus on one task for 5 hours straight. If I'm walking the dogs, I can let my mind wander as it pleases, though we do have baby ducks in the yard, so I do have to pay a little bit of attention to make sure that the dogs don't eat them. But if I'm putting up the dishes or doing the laundry that I forgot to put on this morning, and there's a symptom, it's not so bad. My off days generally are, they're a lot calmer, so I don't have to worry about it as much. And then driving is, same as always, tend to pay more attention to what's in my brain than what's on the road, which again is one of the reasons why I wanted to take, probably the main reason why I wanted to take medicine, because I would, like to be a safe driver, please. If I'm driving around in a 2-ton thing at 50 miles an hour with a bunch of other people driving around in 2-ton things at 50 miles an hour, there's a certain amount of attention that you probably need to give to your task at hand. One of the things that I mentioned in the video that I put out was that, I was yet another example of an adult woman, which, I'm 20, so adult is technically correct. Only technically correct. But of an adult woman being diagnosed with ADHD, of, symptoms not being noticed until later in life. Because if I'm not mistaken, the large majority of people are diagnosed with ADHD whenever they're children, whenever they're in elementary school, and that's because that's when their symptoms really start affecting them and their ability to do schoolwork. Because that's how our kind of system for catching ADHD is set up, is that it notices when the child is falling behind. It's more reactive than proactive, basically. And so for me, a lot of my symptoms were quote-unquote more subtle. I wasn't bouncing all over the walls as a child or constantly having really bad impulse controls or anything. My thing was I would fidget with things a lot, which was annoying in the fact that it meant I frequently broke things that weren't meant to be fidgeted with. But, all in all, that's not that big of a deal. I would lose things constantly. I cannot tell you the number of jackets that I lost because I left them on the bus. So, I'd get on the bus with the jacket, and the bus would be hotter than it was outside, so I'd take the jacket off, and then I'd get off the bus and leave the jacket behind. I lost so many jackets that way. It's a little bit ridiculous. And I was also a very talkative child. I had already kind of suspected for a little while when the pandemic hit, but it was when the pandemic hit that my ability, my, internal ability to keep up with everything that I needed to do kind of started slipping. And because I had kind of started suspecting, that was when I really started paying attention for symptoms. So that was whenever I noticed my inability to like really focus on the lectures, and how if I tried to force myself to focus, I just could not sit still. I had to be like playing with something. It was how I noticed like my ability to like really focus on homework for extended periods of time, or like be able to comprehend what I was reading, because that was a big issue, was that I would try and read something and my brain would just not absorb it, and it would just think of other things instead of trying to focus and pay attention and like really comprehend what I was reading. What was I talking about? Right, inability to focus on the lecture, inability to kind of like focus on the homework and comprehend the homework, and then also like really the ability to get the tasks done that I needed to get done, because unless there was some sort of like external punishment for not getting it done, like for example, you know, if I didn't get a homework assignment done, or if I didn't learn a lesson, then I was going to do poorly on a test, and if I did poorly on a test, there was a chance I could lose my scholarship. So unless there was like some sort of clearly defined negative outcome associated with not doing a task, and if there was a very obvious need to go ahead and get the task done, that was when I could do the task. But if there was not a serious negative consequence attached to it, or if I didn't need to do it immediately, being able to do the task was significantly harder. And I also noticed the symptom of getting something most of the way done, and then either forgetting to finish it, or not being able to get it all the rest of the way done to get it turned in. Well, I almost forgot to do the video log for today, and I almost forgot to take my medicine this morning. So, I think that gives a pretty good idea of what my symptoms are like today. So I realized about 2:45 this afternoon that I forgot to take my medicine this morning. It only took 3 days to get to that point. Symptom-wise, it took longer than normal before I started zoning out while working. But I also was on and off researching, what is it? What's the plant? Now I can't even remember what the plant's called, and I spent 3 hours researching it. It's a flower. It's a toxic flower that if you ingest it, you can die. Or Oriander? I feel like there's an L somewhere in that word. Anyway, I spent like 3 hours researching the toxicity of that plant, and what autopsy and toxicology reports are like when it comes to detecting and reporting various poisons. So I feel like not working straight, you know, not just doing paperwork, but also going back and forth between doing my actual job and then researching this is part of the reason why it was about an hour and a half or so later than usual before the zoning out problems really started. Day 5. I'm filming this at a weird angle because I straight up forgot what I was going to say. I'm filming this at a weird angle because I almost forgot to do it, and now my phone is on 6%. So it's charging so I can record and my phone not die. My day started by forgetting to grab my hairbrush before I came to my grandparents' house. So that tells you how my symptoms are doing. Whenever I got here, I continued the daydream that I was having while I was driving here for about 20 minutes until I was forced to go help with lunch. So, I think it's safe to say the meds have had no effect yet. Not that I'm expecting them to, but that's definitely proof that they've had zero effect. I'm also only 25 minutes into an episode of something that I've been trying to watch for about the past hour and a half because I keep doing other things. So I actually forgot to do a video recording yesterday, and now it is 12 o'clock, so I'm a little bit late, but that's okay. In my defense, I wasn't really focused on trying to do a video log. I was more focused on the fact that I was hot and sweaty from walking around the zoo in 90-degree heat. But I had a good time with my friend. As for symptoms, I don't really remember anything other than, I don't know, general zoning out while at the zoo. I don't really know. I will say for today, day 7, something I noticed this morning is that I was stimming kind of a lot. More so than usual. So like tapping on my water bottle to the beat of the music, or just randomly started clapping and just kind of being a little fidgety this morning while I was driving mostly. It didn't seem to be quite so much of a problem once I actually got to work. Last night I was also fidgeting with stuff. For a while there I was messing with the wall adapter. The little tongs that go into the socket can flip in and out. And so I was repeatedly flipping them in and out. And eventually I was like, hey, wait a minute, this is probably bad for the wall socket. So I put it down and I picked up my fidget cube and I just fiddled with it while I watched Supernatural. Hopefully, when I get off work, I'll remember to do another one of these. So today is day 9. I completely forgot to do a follow-up video on day 7, and I forgot to do a video period on day 8. So, I can't say that I remember anything that really happened between when I made the video and when I went home that day, but that means literally nothing because I can't remember for shit. Well, I spent a couple of minutes yelling at the TV and actually came very close to chunking the TV remote against the wall because I was so frustrated at it because Amazon Prime wouldn't play right and I couldn't get it to pause. So I'm just sitting there, sort of listening to the audio while the video won't play and the subtitles won't keep up, growing more and more frustrated by the minute. So I think we can say that emotional dysregulation is an issue today. I don't know how much so, but almost definitely made worse by the fact that I did not get enough sleep last night. And it's like, you know, so many things make sense in hindsight. Like, this one time at church camp. So, the thing about camp is that you get basically no sleep. Like, your best bet of being in bed trying to sleep is midnight. And that's probably not gonna happen, especially not the first night. Because the first night, everyone wants to stay up talking and getting to know each other. So, like, you might not be going to bed till 2, 3, 4 a.m. if the people that are supposed to be the adults in your cabin aren't, you know, properly making people do what they're supposed to do. So you get like no sleep, but you're also going all day long, just like running around, doing activities, just doing things. So you get very, very tired very quickly. So this was the 2nd or 3rd night at camp. I was crying over soap. I had lost my soap. I was, you know, getting ready to go to the communal shower. Oh yeah, there were communal showers. We didn't have, actual showers in the cabins we were in. Cabin is slightly misleading perhaps, but that's the best I got. No, it was a separate building. I mean, the girls and the boys were separated, so like it was just girls, but it was a communal shower. Anyway, I couldn't find my soap. I had lost my soap. The previous night, I guess I had left it in the shower that I was using, and, you know, then I couldn't find it, and I was crying over it. And I don't mean just like a tear or two, I mean like full-on crying. I don't think I was sobbing, but it's been a few years, so it's entirely possible that I was like full-on crying, sobbing over soap. And you know what the kicker was? It's not that I couldn't take a shower, because I could, because there were soap dispensers in the shower. So, at the time, I had just blamed it on how tired I was, and I'm sure that that played a role, but I already started with a deficiency in my ability to regulate my emotions, which led to me crying over soap. I actually watched a video the other day about ADHD and frustration and how, you know, we can get very frustrated very easily, and it can lead to us lashing out and crying and all these different things. And it was like, oh, so that's why I started crying when trying to learn how to play the piano, and I couldn't get it easily. I was frustrated. Again, at the time, we blamed it on the fact that I wasn't used to not being able to conquer something that I tried to do relatively easily, because, you know, I was one of those people that school was always relatively easy. I got good grades. It's one of the reasons why my ADHD wasn't diagnosed until later in life. So I wasn't accustomed to really having to try, in order to be able to master something. I wasn't used to having to practice. And so this was something that I had to practice regularly. God, I hated practicing piano. But it wasn't something that I could ever really easily get down. And so I got very, very frustrated. And I can remember crying over it at least once, possibly more than once, probably more than once. And it's like, oh, well, that's why. Day 12, I'm tired. That's not a symptom. I'm just tired. Anyway, symptoms. I seem to be fidgety again, so that might be a symptom that gets worse with lack of sleep. Zoning out wasn't a problem the same way as it usually is. Instead of getting distracted by my own thoughts, it reached a point where I kind of just felt like I was separated from reality, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It doesn't make much sense to me, to be perfectly honest, so if it doesn't make sense to you, it's understandable. But it was, I don't know. It was like, it was almost like watching someone else do the things that needed to be done. But I'm still in my body. Yeah, that's not making much sense to me either. You know what I should probably do is I got distracted by a motorcycle. I should probably look at the list of symptoms that I made for myself whenever I went to get tested and use that list as like I guess a checklist of, let's see, was this a problem today or did I experience this thing today? That would probably be a good idea. Only took me 12. How many days? What did I say at the beginning of this video? Now I don't even remember. Okay, hang on. Monday was 7, Tuesday was 8, Wednesday was 9, Thursday was 10, so today was 11. Yeah, okay, day 11. Only took me 11 days to come up with that idea. This isn't what I meant to do. Why did I turn? The Dollar General isn't down here. It was literally right in front of me. Day 13, I think. Don't really have much to report. Yeah, I mean, it felt pretty much same as always. A little fidgety, a little spacey, a little zony-outy, a little trouble concentrating-y. The only thing that I really have to report about today is that I felt kind of more depressed than usual. I feel like depressed might be too strong of a word, but like more down than usual, I guess. But I honestly don't think that had anything to do with the meds. I think it was just, one of those days or something.